I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Gadigal people and pay my respects to their ancestors. Edward Leo Hayes, who lived from 1889 to 1967, was a Catholic priest and a book collector. He was born on the 23rd of November in 1889 at Fredericton in New South Wales, the second of 8 children of native-born parents Edward Martin Hayes and school teacher Bridget Mary. Leo was educated at public schools where his father was the headmaster. He left at the age of 15 to work in Gunnedah as in an auctioneer's office. Having studied from 1911 at St Columba's Seminary, Springwood, New South Wales, he proceeded to St Patrick's College, Manly, where he won a prize for dogmatic theology. On the 30th of November 1918, he was ordained a priest for the Brisbane Archdiocese by the Apostolic Delegate Bartolomeo Cattaneo at St Mary's Cathedral here in Sydney, and this picture was taken in that year. While he was assistant priest at Ipswich, Hayes developed an interest in geology. He was also parish priest at Kilcoy before going to Taroom, assigned to Chinchilla, and during his appointment to Crow's Nest from 1931 to 1950, he was responsible for establishing churches at Haddon, Coalbank and Perseverance Creek. He was next based at Oakey from 1951 to 1967. That was his last posting, where he built St Monica's Church and the convent school, as well as renovating the convent and presbytery. Whilst a good and very well-loved priest, it was due to his hoard that the Leo Hayes collection that he attained prominence. A man described as having bowerbird instincts, Hayes had bought his first book as a 7-year-old and began to gather when he, at a time, was gathering birds' eggs. Ultimately, his collection comprised 25,000 books, pamphlets and periodicals, about 2/3 of them Australiana, and 30,000 manuscripts, letters and documents, and even, as we see here, the odd diprotodon bone as well in his collection. An article about a visit to the offices of the Bulletin in 1947 provides an insight into the collector from the red page of November 26th. Father Leo Hayes, parish priest at Crow's Nest, about 30 miles from Toowoomba, called on the Bulletin recently with the same enthusiasm. Among those manuscripts now held in the Fryer Library are letters and poems from well-known authors, including Dame Mary Gilmore, Oodgeroo Noonuckle, Steele Rudd, Henry Lawson, William Morris, and Banjo Patterson. Rare books featured include first editions such as Matthew Flinders' A Voyage to Terra Australis from 1814, and an inscribed copy of Ludwig Leichhardt's Journal of an Overland Expedition in Australia from Moreton Bay to Port Essington, 1847, and Gregory Matthews' stunning 12-volume Birds of Australia. Other items include legal papers, press cuttings, book plates, stamps, medals, coins, postcards, photographs, maps, pistols, and condamine cowbells. There's even convict records, such as this ticket of leave for Joseph Wilkes, one of 369 convicts transported on the Dromedary from the Warwick Assizes to Van Diemen's Land in 1820. The Fryer Library added the Hayes collection to its holdings 55 years ago in 1967. Then based in Oakey on the Darling Downs, the ageing Archdeacon's health had deteriorated, and it was important that his collection find a worthy home. It was his wish that the hoard be not dispersed to the south, it will remain in Queensland where it was gathered together. When loaded for transporting to the university, the size and diversity was astonishing. There were 25 tonnes of material, 80 crates, 400 cartons, including 25,000 books, pamphlets and periodicals. And this is the collection squad that went to Oakey to collect the material. Father Hayes down the bottom there, Nancy Bonham, my predecessor, who was Fryer Librarian from the mid-60s to the mid-70s. Spencer Routh, the library's first reference librarian, who just passed away this year. Cecil Hadgraft, a great professor of literature who was also instrumental in the Hayes collection coming to Fryer. Derek Fielding, and Catholic priests Bob Flynn and Kevin Ryan, and Catholics in Brisbane will know Father Ryan's articles in the Catholic Leader for many years, up until he died about 10 years ago. And he just looked closely at this this photograph. This is Hayes with the Vice-Chancellor at the time, Sir Fred Chanel, who described this large collection coming in as a weight of learning. The university gave Father Hayes an honorary doctorate. And here he is holding one of the books in a staged photo in, obviously, Fred Chanel's office. He's looking at Australian marketing projects and looking riveted. Now, the university did pay him a nominal sum of $20,000, and that went to paying some of his debts. There are in the collection some funny letters from people seeking payment, one from Angus and Robertson. May we, whilst expressing our appreciation at your past patronage, bring your attention to the undernoted outstanding amount on your account. We feel sure that by doing so will be all that is necessary to secure attention to it, and trust that we shall soon have the pleasure of thanking you for your remittance in the settlement. One item that I'm talking about today that's not included in that large hoard is a beautiful book of illuminated poems, Gleanings from Australian Verse. This was commissioned by Father Hayes by a lady in Brisbane who was very skilled in the art of illumination, of calligraphy, of bookbinding, and her name was Lilian Pedersen. And she writes in this letter to Hayes, it's also in our collection, "Your visit this afternoon has given me the greatest pleasure. I cannot remember when I last enjoyed an afternoon so much. The thought that I am to be commissioned to letter a book for you has thrilled me to the core. I shall be able to write a colophon at the end of it, something like this. This book, which was written and illustrated and bound at the beginning of the bidding of Father Leo Hayes, it seems wonderful to me and has made me feel so happy." And we see here Lilian, that's the colophon that appears in the book. Not easy to find photographs of Lilian, but this is a sort of faded one from her holiday home at Tweed Valley in 1948. And this is what this beautiful book looks like in the pages. And so this is 17 poems chosen by Father Hayes, written in calligraphy with accompanying illustrations depicting the location or the subject of the poem. Pedersen crafted a tooled leather binding with ornamentation in pewter, studded with semi-precious stones, including opals and agates, collected by Father Hayes when he was a parish priest at Crow's Nest. Now, the original cover was damaged, and the central panel was replaced in the early 2000s by the book restorer Anne Clunan, with one remaining gemstone left. The poems are The First Comers There by Margaret Curran, Carnarvon Deep Gorges by Bertha Butler, Love in a Cottage by Daniel Henry Dehaney, The Frog Pool by James Devaney, Toowoomba Dark Purple by George Essex Evans, Where the Pelican Builds, Mary Hannay Foote, The Wiradjuri Tribe, Mary Gilmore, and Taralga, also by Mary Gilmore, When Winter Comes to Queensland by Alice Gore-Jones, famous My Country by Dorothea McKellar, The Gentle Waterbird for Mary Gilmore by John Shaw Nielsen, Old Salt by Lydia O'Neill, The Way of It by D.L. Waraka, and Magic Rain, done, and Waratah and Wattle by Henry Lawson. Here's a cutting from the newspapers from the following year in 1941. So that book was commissioned in early 1940. 1941, Lilian Pedersen and others start what is called the Half Dozen Group of Artists, which is an offshoot of the Royal Queensland Art Society. And that's comprised of a number of interesting artists, James Winnicky, people who are working with different types of materials, pottery, illuminations, such as what Lilian did. And you see here the opening of their first exhibition in 1940 with the governor, Sir Leslie Orme Wilson, opening it. And in that photograph in the strip there, it shows a lady named Mona Elliott, who was also a member of the Half Dozen Group of Artists, holding Gleanings from Australian Verse. Here are some of the beautiful pages from the book. There's Dorothy McKellar's famous My Country. And you see here some of the beautiful detail of that. So the line and wash, beautiful watercolours, very small, but when you zero in on the detail, absolutely beautiful. Just as if you look at that detail of that first letter in The Old Salt by Neil. So beautiful work. And in the the article in the Bulletin from 1947, he describes how he had chosen this lady who originally from Manchester to create this book of illuminated poems in the manner of the medieval period. This beautiful one here is The Frog Pool by James Devaney. Week after week it shrank and shrank as the fierce drought fiend drank and drank, till on the bone-dry bed revealed the mud peeled, but now tonight is steamy warm, heavy with hint of thunderstorm. And hark, hark, hoarse and harsh, the throaty croak of the frogs in the marsh. Awake, 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 the drought break, but no, the chorus seems to me more a primeval. And having just had New Year's up at Port Douglas in Cairns, in a house that had quite a chorus of frogs behind, this beautiful poem spoke to me, and beautiful work there, the little watercoloured frogs. There is Jim Devaney and his wife in Sydney in 1939, and James Devaney had a house up at Mount Tamborine. Launched a writers' project up there in May that featured touchscreens with writers who lived on the mountain, including Jim Devaney. There is Mary Hannay Foote's Where the Pelican Builds. She is there. And there's again that gorgeous detail. And in the bulletin interview, Father Hayes says, look at these tiny watercolours, less than 1 inch square, and look at the detail. See here, Mary Hannay Foote's Where the Pelican Builds. Look at the little miniature. Isn't it a gem? Poems here relating to Queensland. So that's the other interesting thing about this book. There's a Queensland flavour throughout. When winter comes to Queensland, on this side here, on the other side, Toowoomba Dark Purple by George Essex Evans, who was at that time, early 20th century poet. When he died, Alfred Deakin eulogised him in the Parliament. He died from complications arising from gallbladder surgery in 1909 and was only 46 years of age. He was called Australia's poet. In a speech that was wired to the poet's widow after his death, Australian Prime Minister Deakin shared his sentiments, stating that he was deeply grieved at the sudden unexpected death of your greatly gifted husband. Australia will mourn the loss of her national. His patriotic songs stirred her people profoundly in the arduous campaign for union. And at the University of Queensland, we have a beautiful illuminated poem that used to hang in the graduations hall in the early days of the university when it started, and a relief of George Essex Evans. And in Toowoomba, there is a monument to George Essex Evans, and that poem that's in the illuminated Gleanings from Australian Verse is one of the poems that features on that monument. Dark purple chased with sudden gloom and glory, like waves in wild unrest, low-wooded billows and steep summits hoary, ridge, slope and mountain crest. My favourite in the collection is John Shaw Nielsen's The Gentle Waterbird for Mary Gilmore, a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful poem by my favourite Australian poet. And Carnarvon Deep Gorges by Bertha Butler, which won't be so well known today, but it had that place had a special prominence for Father Hayes. Hidden in the rugged ranges of Queensland's Central Highlands, Carnarvon Gorge features towering sandstone cliffs, vibrantly coloured side gorges, diverse flora and fauna, and Aboriginal rock art. It was a special place for Father Hayes. He was involved in a scientific expedition in the late 1930s. For his role, he was presented with the Royal Geographical Society's Thomson Medal. And in that interview with the Bulletin staff, he takes the medal in with him and shows them the workmanship of the medal maker. Magic Rain, Rain Magic by Francis Dunn. And very beautiful, this illumination for Henry Lawson's Waratah and Wattle. Of course, this is the 100th anniversary of Henry Lawson's death this year, and his papers are held here in the Fryer Library. This is a beautiful, beautiful work. Again, one of my favourites in the collection. There's Henry there, 1915. Other interesting things that complement this object are letters in the collection. There is a letter from Mary Gilmore to Lilian Pedersen at her house in Bennett's Road in Norman Park, and she's giving her permission in this letter to illuminate some more of her poems, being very interested to see what she achieved in Father Hayes's Gleanings from Australian Verse. Two poems that appear in Gleanings are by Mary Gilmore, and both of them express her sorrow at the treatment of the Aboriginal people at the hands, well, after colonialisation. One is Taralga and the other is the Wurundjeri tribe. This is what the cover looks like, and there is a note there that you see on the side there, book by Anne Clunan, where she describes what she did to try to restore that front part of the binding. There's just one gemstone left that she tried to put back in place, a chrysoprase, and she has taken that John Shaw Nielsen poem, the little beautiful watercolour of the water bird there, and she's recreated that on the front cover, and she's had to re-put in the little leather strips. We have her toolbox, the tools that she used for the leatherwork. Again, that gorgeous detail in the James Devaney piece. And finally, in the cuttings collection of the half dozen group of artists, there are quite a few pictures and stories from Lilian Pedersen over the decades. She died in 1983. In 1982, the year before her death, there was an opening ceremony for the new Queensland Art Gallery at the Cultural Centre, and she was presented with the Trustees Gold Medal, a measure of appreciation for her enthusiasm, selflessness, and devotion to art locally. In the Courier Mail, the journalist Peter Dean wrote, "I've always associated E. Lilian Pedersen with beautifully illuminated manuscripts and embroidered wall hangings, rather than her paintings and drawings. And her work in Gleanings from Australian Verse is a lasting record of that talent and skills as an illuminator, calligrapher, leatherworker, and bookbinder." Thank you very much.